Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Khalees Times Remote Workforce Summit. We are joined today by Mr. Partha Sasti in a fireside chat on the importance of cybersecurity in remote working. Mr. Partha Sasti is the CISO, Executive Vice President of First Abu Dhabi Bank. He has profound experience in banking and IT information security. He comes across with 29 years of work experience in financial industries, including banks, along with 16 years experience working as CISO for large banks in UAE and India. He is also responsible for aligning information security to banks' core functions of bank. Welcome on board, Mr. Partha. How are you doing today?
Hi, good morning. I'm fine.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And as we were discussing offline, we are going to have some interesting point of discussions as we go forward. When history comes to be written about the current decade, the past few months may well mark a turning point. Exactly how remains to be seen. But one thing has become evidently clear. The way organizations work may never be the same again. This matters a great deal for CISOs like you because we were worried, earlier we were more worried about the insider threats. The same risk could be many more greater among workforce working from home. This is where, as we were discussing offline, the user training comes in between, but we simply cannot put a blanket scheme in place where, which may work or which may not work. As we were discussing, some employees will break the rules, some out of ignorance, not a conscious decision to do. So without further ado, let's take our discussion forwards, Mr. Partha. How challenging, you just mentioned that it's been 6 months and you have visited your office only 3-4 times. So how challenging it has been for you working from home personally?
Okay, now I just want to put a standard disclaimer. These are my personal and professional view, and this has got nothing to do with the organization where I work across. Work from home has its own advantages and disadvantages. The advantage which I want to speak across first is the first one is it has helped to give more time at the disposal of the employee rather than be on the road. So if you look at in any part of the world, everybody travels minimum 1 to 2.5 hours a day towards travel from their place of stay to the place of work and return. So now that becomes an saving in the hands of the employee. The second advantage which comes across to the staff is the flexibility of working. So today, when you have to go to an office, you have to prepare yourself, you prepare the whole background about it, go. And at that time, if something of your personal crops up, you are caught between the devil and the deep sea. Today, you are working from home. You have the flexibility to handle things in the time slots which you can get in between your work. The second advantage. The third advantage to society is if you see across today, the the moment has come down substantially that the pollution effect has come down all over the world. Okay, vehicular pollutions has come down a lot of thing, and if you look across today, that is seen as one more positive change. In fact, in most of the economy, as you mentioned, they say that 25% of the workforce might not return back to office at all. Okay, many organizations are seeing that it has a huge positive impact on the bottom lines of the company because they do not require to spend money in maintaining the infrastructure at all. So this is going to have a huge impact on the socio-economic setup of every place where urbanization is creating a huge concentration risk. Now, technically speaking, the person can work within the country from anywhere and he can discharge the work as he would be discharging otherwise. So these are the positive sides, as that it gives a synergy to the organization, it heals the mother earth to a large extent, and it gives a flexibility to the staff.
But what
But there
about,
are
yeah,
downsides.
there are so many disadvantages as
There are a
well.
lot of downsides are there.
Yes.
The one
So,
is the people will slowly become non-coherent as they are not in continuous touch with each other. Okay. In fact, there are a lot of psychological aspects which have been spoken in many developed countries to say that too much working from home could mar the concept of team and people can become silo. That is one aspect of it. And they also talk about the organization losing its culture. So every organization in the workplace create an unwritten implicit social standard. Okay. What I call as informal organization. The informal organization might cease to exist and we might become only a formal organization over the meetings. The second aspect, if you see across, is burnout syndrome. People can get burnt out because they are not stopping the work, especially the people who are workaholic can become very badly affected because they are blurring the line of personal and official life. So there could be challenges in the work-life balance part of it. The third challenge is from the organization perspective is you really do not know how to monitor the productivity of staff. If you say there will be burnout syndrome of good employees, there could be people who could take advantage of the other side also. Okay, there has been case studies available in US. You can search across where a person had completely outsourced his job to another country at a lower price and he was not doing any work. There is one more instance where a person was working in two banks in two different countries. So these things could become a great challenge for the organization.
no, I
Now,
agree with you. But, here, another challenge, these are the some, very, we will say more at a superficial level or more at a upper grade level. But when we talk about the organization challenges, you just mentioned that there is no privacy without security, but there is no security without privacy. So my question to you is, how important for a CISO is it to have a cybersecurity governance and risk management programs?
see, I would like to rephrase your statement this way. See,
Yeah.
there can be security without privacy, but there can never be any privacy without security. So if you want to have a privacy, security is the first criteria. For example, if you want to become an ISO standard for privacy, the first pre-requirement is you have to get your security ISO, and then you can start the journey for the privacy. Okay, so the private for the privacy information security is the first goalpost, and then you start the journey further. That's a minimum qualification which is required. Now, the second aspect is that the privacy of an individual versus information security of the organization will keep on clashing. If you ask across, there's a very famous dialogue is there in the civics world is where does one's liberty stops? The one's liberty stops at the end of the nose of the other person. That means I can stretch my hand to the extent it doesn't go and hit the nose of the next person who is next to me. So this is where you have to have a fine balance between the information security needs of the organization, the society, and the economy versus the privacy of the individual. So both are very important. It's like telling whether my right eye is important, my left eye is important.
I
Both
agree
are
with you.
important,
Yeah.
but both has to see the same object. It must not, it cannot look at two different objects. So the objective is the organizational welfare and the social welfare. So you cannot put one against the other. It has to work in a more complementary manner rather than competing manner.
I agree. But how do how do you as a CISO ultra responsive to the, increasing demands of remote workers? Because it's quite challenging. They are working from home. They not everyone is very adaptable to the technology, what is being implemented and all. So there is a crisis which is always happening. So how do you think you can be ultra responsive to the demand of remote workers?
See, you must understand this is not a choice which has been taken by the organization or the humanity. It has been thrown on the organization by the pandemic. So this is not a structured growth. This is a response or a reaction to a situation which nobody anticipated. I can talk about organization which were planning the work from home as a business continuity strategy for 20% of the staff. Now, suddenly, if you say all the people have to work from home, it is not something which can be ramped up from 20 to 100 in a short duration. When you ramp up any infrastructure from 20 to 100 in a short duration, it will give you a lot of glitches. So the user experience would be the last one to come at this point of time. When you start the journey, is the first journey what every organization looks upon is to give first the facility to work from home. The second thing is to build the risk management around the access, and the third one only comes across on the user experience. So user experience is a journey which is taken as the last priority at this point of time, because the organizations had not planned for a work from home for all the staff. So you cannot scale up the infra. See, you can scale up 10 to 15% infrastructure very easily. But if you want to scale up your infrastructure 5 times, that's going to have its own challenge. And infrastructure scaling is also once again affected by the COVID, because the infrastructure provider is also handicapped by the social distancing and other restrictions of COVID with regard to free movement. So it is a challenge. And if you ask across, it's a type of a maturity towards a customer experience. And the organization are taking cognizance of it. They're continuously working with the staff on the training programs to say that this is the way you are supposed to use it, so that they do not try to have an exploration of a new island. You know what is the island, where it is, what it is. You can click and go across. Awareness programs are done across. And in that awareness programs, they also tend to put them in light to say that these are restrictions with which you are working across. And over a period of time, the things will move further. And it also depends upon the service providers who are giving this work from home facilities. So it is not a change in one organization, it's a change in the complete ecosystem of the organization.
Understandable. How do you think that, there is so much of advancement which is happening in the field of analytics, which is happening in the field of artificial intelligence, big data? So what skills do you think, we need, the new age CISOs will need to keep up with this pace?
See, I will just quote this statement. One of the very famous external consultant, okay, had written an job description for a CISO a decade back, where they said that CISO is a technical person with a business knowledge who will work in the organization to protect the information assets of the bank. Today, a couple of years back or last year, the same consultant has written the new job definition as a business person with technology knowledge to ensure and be a stakeholder in the organizational journey. So if you look across, the last definition was securing information asset. Now the CISO is looked upon as a business person with some technical knowledge to be an enabler for the business to move further. So that is where the shift moves away to the business rather than to the technology. At the end of the day, everything is done to ensure the organization runs and the organization makes money so that it can feed all the staff of the organization. Coming back to artificial intelligence and machine learning, this is a new skill set which is getting developed on the basis of the data. So the data is the underlying engine on the basis of which the artificial intelligence and machine learning works. So the first phase of this cycle is the collection of the data. Now, with the privacy coming in, there are a lot of challenges with regard to collection of data. Okay, today, if you look at privacy programs of European Union called GDPR, where it clearly requires the data collector to take the permission of the data subject or the individual to be included in any analysis. So you could have collected the data today. First question, it bars the collector to take a one-time permission for all type of analysis. The second thing is they must tell every time what is the purpose of the engine and why they want to include it. Unless otherwise explicit consent is given, they are not expected to take the data for any analysis. Now, so the question is, so the available data elements are going to come down because people might not have time to ask every time when you're going to do a profiling, and people might not have time to come and confirm also. See, if I am a person every day, my bank says that we are running a program for identifying high value customers to provide valued services. Do you want to be part of this particular analysis? Now, if a mail comes, I might ignore as a spam and go away rather than every day log in and say yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the artificial intelligence machine learning has a type of a speed breaker in the form of privacy. Organizations are trying to work tokenization as a way to collect the data and create profiles. There are countries in Asia which is coming up with regulation for community data protection. So if the European Union is speaking about private information protection, they are talking about community data protection. So if you collect the data about a community, that requires to be shared with the government and has to be shown to the what purpose they are going to use it, because they do not want somebody to profile on the base of community and start taking some type of a favorable or unfavorable action. This is the thing. The third most important thing in this journey is the how much ever the organization can use analytics and intelligence, the same level the hackers will also use it.
Absolutely.
So you are going to have, I just mentioned to you saying that it's like petrol. I can use it to run my car. I can use it to burn something. So the petrol is neutral. It is helping to create energy, transform from one form to another form. So artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to pose a great challenge. One, the privacy, which is going to hamper the data available for generating and perfecting the data models and artificial intelligence models. The second side is to whatever extent the organization can use this, the same way the intruders can also use the artificial intelligence against the organization. So it is going to be like a real challenging situation because the organization has to comply with the regulation and create defense, whereas an intruder does not require to comply with any regulation and he can attack. So the organizations are going to be in the disadvantageous situation.
Artificial intelligence, as you said, it's a double-edged sword. We are using it for our own benefit. Organizations are using it, and same way, we have hackers who can use it for their advantage and all. So what do you feel that is the biggest challenge at present, what the information security industry is facing?
See, if I say something, it might look very simple. The greatest challenge is the human resources. The human resources as resources for security and resources for other functions.
Are we talking about trained human resources who are trained in that field, or?
No. I tell you, today, if you look at most of the hacks happen all over the world, invariably, all of them are a social hack. An innocuous email comes, it says the salary survey report is available. And one of the users, see if you have 100,000 users working in an organization and one user clicks on it, and that opens up the gateway to the external intruder to come into the organization. So if you ask across the culture, security is not the responsibility of the security professionals. Security is a culture which has to be embedded into every staff from the top to the bottommost layer. so that they are aware that when I'm taking an action, they must say whether this is a genuine one or it is a trickster. Am I falling into the hands of a schemy person? Does my action could lead to a unwanted situation for the organization? So this particular sensitivity requires to be embedded into the organization, because
But sometimes don't you think that we do this, we do understand that these are the security concerns and we know that these are the guidelines, but we are not conscious at times, it's out of ignorance, we do those things. It's not a conscious decision that I'm clicking on this email and it just opens up.
No. The question, that's what I said, it has to be make like a second habit. The reason why I'm saying across is habit is a second nature. First, you must make it as a habit. Today, when you get into the car, without your consciousness, you take the belt and put your belt. Correct? So you have converted this particular activity into an involuntary action. To that extent, it has been imbibed into your psyche. So the same thing requires to come to the organization is that when they see across and message from somebody who they don't know who it is, they must say, I don't know this person, so I must not take this particular information as genuine. This is the starting point of it. If that consciousness could come into the staff, that would be the greatest achievement of the security awareness programs of the organization. Because invariably, the second aspect comes across as people try to disguise themselves as a known person and talk to you. That is a little bit a tricky one, because today WhatsApps are getting hijacked, and then they try to talk to you as though your friend is talking, and then they try to extract money from you. They try to extract information from you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that is the second one, where it is more an emotional core of the individual which is touched. That could lead to a failure. But still, I would say across this today's day and age, we must be aware that the fraudsters are 5 to 6 steps ahead of the organization and the people, and they try to use the naive people as the weakest link to break into the organization.
I think
So
something
security,
similar. Yeah. No, I think what you rightly said, we have to build a security culture. We have to enforce discipline,
I don't want to say enforce. I see the enforce is something. What will happen is there will be a rebel who will come out of it. We have to convince the people that it is for the good of them and make them as a habit. Today, we get into the car and put a seat belt, not because somebody is going to take a photo of mine and give me a fine.
Because that's part of our,
No,
culture.
we are convinced. We are convinced that in case if there is an accident, I will not go and hit the wheel, and it will the airbag will come up and it will help me from banging towards the steering, which can give me a fatal accident. So we require to talk about the impacts to the people and then tell across to say that this is what you have to do if you want to avoid you being in this situation. So it is to tell them very clearly. I keep on telling them that information security awareness is to first protect oneself and then protect the organization. You are, because if you are naive to let go your personal information, that is the gateway. From there an intruder is going to enter into the organization. So this has to start at it's a long journey. The reason being is people, as the technology evolves and it gives more features, the intruders are finding more ways of using it
entering
or
our lives and using our
abusing
money
it.
and everything.
So this is, it's, I tell you, I tell them in a lighter tone, it's like a Tom and Jerry game. Okay, so you can take the ordinary user as Jerry or Tom, and so the game goes on, and there is, it keeps the people engaged. That's all I can tell you. And we had to be, eternal vigilance is the price of security. You have to be vigilant, and the organization, every individual has to be vigilant, starting from the bottommost staff to the topmost staff, because The intruder is looking at one naive user to enter
Yeah.
into the organization.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely. We will wind up our discussions today, and thank you very much for joining us. Just one last thing from you. Just one-liner message which you would like to leave. After your 6 months of working remotely, one-line message which you would like to leave for your fellow peers and our participants who have joined us today.
See, I would say work from home, like any other facility, is coming with the pros and cons. We have to optimize and balance between the pros and cons. You have to have a life balance, work-life balance, and also take sufficient care about the security requirements of the organization. This is what I would say as a long sentence as the takeaway for people to consider when they are in work from home.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Partha, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.